This morning, not one but two Chinese spy ships have shown up to check out the war games taking place in North Queensland as one of the deadliest missiles in the American Army gets fired up for the first time on Aussie soil. Plus, Census 2021, the Australian Bureau of Statistics getting ready to count every person and household in the country. We'll speak to Census Director Andrew about what we can expect to happen on August 10. And who's who in the zoo? Over the last 18 months we've seen some of them on TV, but who are our premiers and chief ministers? This week we'll take a look at the leaders on the East Coast. It's Thursday the 22nd of July 2021. Welcome to Press Gallery. Good morning, I'm Darby Travers filling in for Christian Penny, who has unfortunately come down with a nasty cold just hours before our first ever program, but the show must go on, so let's get straight into it. And we begin this morning with the latest on the COVID-19 pandemic here in Australia, where the virus has now spread between borders while leaders work hard to ease the minds of millions who are subjected to strict lockdown orders in New South Wales. South Australia has entered a snap lockdown and has been extended for a week. And so has Victoria. Some have said the shutdown of construction in Sydney is unnecessary, but authorities have stressed that the measures are in place are necessary to keep the virus under control.
Where we have to get to is that we get as many people vaccinated as possible. We believe that we have the supply, subject to any external shocks that still could impact anyone's systems. We believe by the end of the year, then those who wish to have the vaccine will have had the opportunity to do that. What the level of vaccinations will be a function of how many Australians take that up, and we'll be seeking to maximise that as much as possible. An important way of motivating people to do that, which is why I'm so keen to get this advice and to be able to put those vaccination rates on when we can get to step 2 and be very clear with the states about what step 2 means. I think that will give Australians things to work towards and to go towards.
She's been dubbed the most hated woman in Britain, and Katie Hopkins hasn't been receiving much love from the public here either. The controversial commentator was deported from Australia earlier this week after claiming she's been deliberately trying to break the COVID-19 rules in hotel quarantine. The questions have risen as to why she was here in the first place. Debate is raging over whether Channel 7 and the Big Brother program should be giving her a platform in the first place, with some arguing that her views have no place on television, while others claim her right to free speech has been broken. Earlier, we spoke exclusively to former Big Brother winner Benjamin Norris to get his thoughts.
You know, I think that they should definitely be looking at people who have different forms of an opinion. And to be honest with you, when I heard about Katie Hopkins doing the UK Big Brother, which was almost 8 years ago, I think it'd be about 8 years ago, she was on that show, and I didn't want her to be on the show at the time because I knew her MO and I knew what she was saying in the media in the UK, and I was really against it. However, she turned up on that series of Celebrity Big Brother, and she was rather interesting to watch. I mean, she ended up sort of versing Perez Hilton on that series, who was probably a bigger evil. You know, hard to believe that on a reality show that Katie Hopkins would be the lesser evil, but that's kind of what happened. And for a very hot minute, Katie Hopkins on Big Brother in the UK was actually being quite celebrated. However, I thought she'd come out of, Celebrity Big Brother and then sort of have a bit of a change of heart with the way in which she debated things. And I thought that there was going to be a bit of a refresh. However, she went in the opposite direction, and she went back to sort of saying these really outrageous things, which I don't condone at all. I actually think they're just abhorrent and hard to believe that any media organization out there would give her a platform.
17,000 Australian and US military troops are right now taking part in war games off the North Queensland coast, with not one but two Chinese spy ships keeping tabs on the training exercise. The US Patriot missile, which is one of the deadliest missiles in the American Army, has been fired for the first time on Australian soil. Defence Minister Peter Dutton says he is surprised China has sent two surveillance ships to monitor war games on Queensland's coast, but some experts say it could become the new normal. The national census is coming up in August, with all Australians being surveyed by the Bureau of Statistics. But this year we can expect some new questions, though the element is being left out despite calls from activists to have it included. Earlier, our chief anchor Leonardo Puglisi spoke exclusively to Andrew, the executive director of the 2021 census from the Australian Bureau of Statistics in Melbourne.
10th of August is census night. So from 10th of August onwards, we hope that most people have already done the census online. But from that point on, we'll be following through with households across Australia, reminding them to do it. Once we've got all the census data in, we start processing it. June next year, we release the results. So that'll give us an updated view, almost a post-COVID view, if you like, of what Australia's look like and how our communities have changed. It tells us about our age, our occupations, our education status, birthplace, languages spoken, really rich data set that explains what our communities are all about.
Now, this year is the first year a new topic has been introduced, along with obviously two new questions since 2006. Can you talk about those and the motivations behind including them?
Absolutely. So there are two new questions. The first question is on long-term health conditions, so asthma, diabetes, mental health, which is really prevalent of interest these days. We've got a good national picture through some of our national surveys, but we don't have that community level view. And there's a really strong focus these days on making sure that health services in particular are delivered in a community relevant context. So having that community level view, local view, is important around health. The other new question is around Defence Force service. So Vets Affairs tell us that they think that they service about 200,000 veterans and about 100,000 family. But they think there's about 600,000 veterans out there, and we're not really clear on their circumstances. And veterans can often have very specific health needs. They're a bit more. There's a bit more propensity to be homeless, and they have specialist health needs in particular and support needs. So we've been asked to ask a question on census so that we can actually shine a light on the circumstances of those people.
Now, what's actually been done since the 2016, obviously, issues with the online form that when it pretty much just crashed on census night, is, the Bureau confident that it will be a smooth, it will be smooth sailing this time around?
So what happened in 2016 is we had a distributed denial of service attack, or a series of attacks, and we decided to take the system down. So we took the system down. Once you take something as big and complex down, so it takes a bit of time to get it up, 40 hours to get it all back up and secure again. And we had 63% online, which we're pretty happy about. This time round, and in 2016, we reused some technology that we'd used in the previous census. This time round, all new, ground up. We're working with the Australian Cybersecurity Centre, independent testing. We've even employed ethical hackers. Now, I didn't know there was such a thing as ethical hackers, but basically you pay these guys, professionals, to be disruptive and to try and break your system. And so far, things are looking good.
In the last 18 months, far and wide across Australia, we have met leaders of most states and territories as they address their citizens, announcing daily figures and restrictions, but many people don't actually know who they are. Let's start at the top of the East Coast, where Anastasia Palaszczuk has been the Queensland Premier since 2015 and leader of the Labor Party since 2012. Her government has been relentless and unapologetic in its swift enforcement of border bans and tight restrictions, which was welcomed, and also in a rewarded approach that helped them win the state election in 2020. Ms. Palaszczuk was born in Queensland and studied at the State University and is a lawyer by profession. Australia's largest state is led by Premier Gladys Berejiklian, leader of the Liberal Party. Miss Berejiklian was the State Treasurer, Minister for Industrial Relations and Minister for Transport in earlier governments, with her government re-elected in 2019. Miss Berejiklian was also a general manager at the Commonwealth Bank prior to politics and supports the Australian Republican movement. And a bit further south, Daniel Andrews is the Victorian Premier and has been since 2014, while also being Labor leader since 2010. Mr. Andrews initially worked as a research and political officer and then was later put in a ministry role by Premier Steve Bracks in 2006. A bit more recently, he led Labor to an election victory in 2014 and was re-elected in 2018 in the 2018 election with an increased majority. Check in next week where we meet our leaders in WA, the Northern Territory, the ACT, South Australia and Tasmania, where we will be discussing their chief ministers and premiers. But in the meantime, that is Press Gallery for this week. Thanks so much for your company on our very first edition. Again, Christian should be back next week. We wish him all the best. Leo will of course have 6 News this Sunday from 8 p.m. and of course 24/7 headlines on our website. Just go to 6newsau.com. Now though, I'm Darby Travers. Have a great day.